Hello and welcome. My name's Chris Cowan. I'm with Mining Journal, and I've got Emmerson Chief Executive Hayden Locke on the line. Emmerson is developing its Khemisset Potash Project in Morocco, which this week released a feasibility study outlining a 1.4 billion US dollar NPV alongside a number of outstanding economics and operating metrics. Hayden, firstly, welcome. And if I could get you just to give people a bit of a flavour for how the company developed, how it got to this point, and perhaps who's running it.
It was originally founded by a private equity group out of Hong Kong called Starboard Ventures, and one of the partners of Starboard Ventures is actually an executive director, Robert Rickson. So they found the project in about 2014, 2015, when potash prices were at a 10 or 15 year low.
Okay.
And managed to pull together. This project has been known about for many, many years. It was drilled in the 1950s and 60s when they were looking for oil, as is often the case with potash. What typically happens is that, as always, the data goes missing or goes every which way, and it was never digitized. And so what Starboard did is pull together all of the digital database of all of the technical information associated with this project into one coherent block that allowed us to form a view on, okay, is this something that we would actually be interested in investing in? And we did, and the rest of it is really history. We've done a number of drill programs, we've done some seismic programs, we've done metallurgical testing, we've done a scoping study. We've done a huge amount of work that has culminated in the delivery of that feasibility study now, which shows what we always thought was this is a standout potash project in the global context, and one of the very few potash projects that has the capacity to be built in any potash price environment, really.
Okay, and then obviously investors are usually most interested in the people. Can you give us a bit of background on your experience, mining experience, potash specifically experience, and then what kind of team have you got around you?
So I started my mining career with a gold development company called Papillon Resources. It's actually an exploration company. When I started with it, we made a discovery in Mali in West Africa, which at the time looked fairly interesting. And as we drilled it more, it grew into what is probably now recognised as the best gold discovery of the past, certainly the last decade, maybe even 2 decades in Mali. Now the cornerstone mine for a Canadian company called B2 Gold, who we sold it to in 2014. From there, I've spent the best part of 4 years working for another potash developer, which is a company called Highfield Resources in Spain. And that's where I really started to get my knowledge and understanding and formulate my views on the potash industry as a whole, and came up with the real view that the biggest barrier to entry into the potash market is capital cost. And then the second most important thing is location, rather than all these other things that you would typically see from a mining project. My background is I studied engineering and commerce at university, and then latterly geology. So I am erring on the side of technical, but far more in a management role since I joined the mining franchise. In terms of the team, Rob Rickson, I mentioned, he's ex-Xstrata, so the very large company that merged with Glencore. He's also had a lot of experience running junior mining companies, and the last 5 or 6 years he spent doing private equity investment into mining projects. Had a number of successes, including Emmerson. In terms of other team members, Enrique Sanz is our consultant geologist. He is formerly of Rio Tinto's bulk commodities team focused on potash. So he spent a lot of time looking for potash projects for Rio Tinto globally, and has been working with us for the last 5 years on an almost full-time basis. And then probably the other key member of the team is Phil Cleggett, who came with me from Highfield Resources. He and I worked very closely together in Highfield Resources when I was managing the technical team and the delivery of the financing proposals for Highfield. So we've got a very good core team that has worked a lot together, a lot of experience in potash between myself and Phil. And then, we've got a really strong, broader project management team led by 2 gentlemen, Nick Edens, who's a very senior mining engineer in the world of bulk commodities, and Jakob Zmuda, who is one of his proteges. They've worked together on multiple projects, and they're our project management team. So a very good team, we think, from an operational perspective. When we start moving into construction, there may be some need to change that, bring in some construction skills, almost certainly. And then as we transform into operations, certainly a different skill set again.
Okay. And we have mentioned very briefly that Khemisset is at the point now where all the feasibility work is done. You are looking to build it, you are looking to finance it. Can you give people some background or some understanding of the corporate structure, your LSE listed, and access to investors, and your prospects of actually getting this financing up and running?
Yeah, so we're listed on the LSE on the standard list. I'd say our market cap is definitely not reflective of the value of this project. And people will have often posed the question, do you think that's a signal that the market says they don't think you can get it financed? I wonder whether it's just a bit of apathy towards potash. It's got a bit of a storied history in London. And so people are a bit gun shy given the bad experiences they've had with a number of stories. I think from a financing perspective, what I would say is there are a lot of potential financing options available to us that don't necessarily involve us going to the market directly for new equity to be issued. So what are the sorts of things that I'm talking about? Well, there's obviously a big push these days for mining private equity. So there are groups that would be interested in this from a private equity perspective. They may invest at the project level. There are potential strategic partners that would be very interested in a project like this. As I said in a past interview with you, a potash project that can be built in any price environment and will be able to produce through this potash cycle is an incredibly rare asset that a lot of potash or fertilizer industry participants would love to get their hands on. And then there are non-standard financings, so large royalties. There is a real movement of new funds being raised specifically to target large-scale royalties on mining projects globally. And then there are non-traditional debt sources as well. So there's a variety of potential avenues for us to follow. Mm-hmm. We will run them all concurrently and hopefully find one which best suits our current investors in terms of holding on to as much possible value as we can for those groups.
Okay, and London's the right place to do that from. And I ask that specifically with the equity component in mind, and just thinking of places like Toronto where people are perhaps more au fait with potash or have had better experiences with potash compared to London. You're quite happy with your London base?
Yeah, we're happy with our London base. I think London, in terms of the depth of capital, is as good as anywhere you will go in the world. Now it's challenging around the world, or at least it has been challenging around the world to raise money for mining projects in anything but local denomination gold projects. So I don't think changing our jurisdiction or changing our where we're listed will be of any real benefit to us. In terms of the other non-standard investors, they're not really caring whether you're listed on the ASX, TSX, or the LSE. So really, I think London adds a lot of positives for us in terms of the regulatory framework that you operate under in London. But also for us, having our base in London makes a lot of sense because it is just so close to Morocco.
Sure.
Sub a 3-hour flight makes it very easy to get down to site. Means that we're in the same time zone when we're managing people on site. Just makes the whole operational management a lot easier.
Hayden Locke, thanks very much for your time.